What's going on, everybody? It's Friday. It's Aloha Friday. It's September 29th, and you are watching the Daily AI Show live. And as you can see, most of us, we were just talking about this before we went live, most of us are now rocking the Hawaiian shirts. I think we're still working on a few people.
I have one.
I don't want
to. It's the same one every week.
So yeah, no, Robert has one. I think we still need to get one over to Perth, Australia for Aaron. He might quite possibly be the only person in Perth, Australia wearing a Hawaiian shirt. Who knows? Maybe maybe
during winter.
You never know. I mean, they seem pretty ubiquitous to me, but you never know. All right. So today is Friday. We're all in a pretty good mood, joking around. And that's, I think, because we're all kind of excited to talk about this topic. I know I am. And as always, we'll try to get it in 30 minutes. But it's all about selling the future, mastering the art of pitching AI services. So there's really two ways we can look at this. There's internal pitching and then there's external pitching. So, I work for a sales consulting company. I talk about that quite a bit. Company's named Scale Consulting. And we pitch AI services, obviously, to other companies. However, I would say over this year, I've done quite a bit of pitching internally to my company as well. Either A, because I'm trying to help get my coworkers up to a point where I feel like everybody's using AI and understands the value of it and things like that. So there's a lot of that side of it. And then obviously there's the going and talking to other clients. So some of the topics, I'll just throw out some of the topics that we have on our, what's coming up, what we'll cover, clarity and simplicity, learning how to best describe your AI service, avoiding jargon. That's a big deal. I'd love to talk about that. Persuasion, understanding how to highlight the value proposition of AI service. That one gets tricky sometimes because a lot of times it's like, well, what's the ROI? How can you prove it to me? How do we overcome things like that? Storytelling, obviously, is going to be a huge part of it. And obviously selling the solution. So, even in our show description, AI has a lot of hype right now, and that's true. And so the question is, what happens when the hype dies down? If it dies down, I don't know if that's necessarily like next week or anything, but as this all becomes very commonplace, just human nature is to just be like, yeah, what's next? And we're not really that excited anymore about these huge leaps in technology. And so when that dies down, how do we continue to, provide the solution or sell the solution? So there's the overview. Is anybody excited here to jump in? Does anyone want to take first crack at this?
I want to just say one quick thing here to set the stage. Just this week, a new study by the Harvard Business School evaluating nearly 800 BCG consultants around the globe found that those that used AI in their work increase the quality of their work by an average of 30%, and the quantity of their work as measured by rate of task completion by 25%.
Oh, now, Andy, that's so last week. Come on, man. Where were you?
Oh, is it so last week? Okay. Anyway, if we didn't mention it, I mentioned it today. So anyway, that is the value proposition of AI services. Whatever you can do, lead with the proof point, which is, hey, when we measure the use of AI internally, there's significant productivity increases. Okay, that's all I have to say.
No, I think look, it always is going to help to push back to some, data, right? And then I think we haven't had these studies. I mean, I think that's a great point, Andy, because we haven't necessarily had these studies because there hasn't been enough time to really dive deep into the huge, implications and improvements or efficiency that, AI can have.
And I think I know that study, Andy, and I was kidding, but it did come out last week maybe 2 weeks ago. But what the big takeaway I had from that was that it upscaled the lower performers the most. Yeah. So that to me is like, whoa, it's the great equalizer, as we've been saying. So the great performers, went up a little bump, but the kind of, I don't know how they measure BSG consultants, but however they did, they felt like they leapfrogged up to a much more competent level or more.
I didn't think BCG had any low or below average performers, but
right.
They do. And they were able to identify those people. And those people saw a 43% increase in their productivity as compared to 17% for the high performing cohort.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is something that we bring up all the time, and that's a great point. Again, with sales consulting, our focus is going to be on sales teams, and we're talking to a lot of like SVPs and director of sales and things like this. And that's something we bring up all the time is that, hey, by the way, sales leader, not only is this great for us to deploy and for your team to use because it's going to increase efficiency and all the things you just said, which I 1,000% believe are true. But also what a lot of the leaders aren't necessarily realizing is, hey, by the way, this is a great tool to help your mediocre performers rise to exceptional levels. And so we even have prompts that we've built for our sales leaders that then go in and say, hey, I have a below performing, sales rep. They're not meeting the same quota as some of their other counterparts. Help me create an 8-week plan to help them level up to the level with some other things that are in that prompt. So without getting into the whole thing, that's a massive tool that now this sales leader can say, like, they may be looking at this person and go, I really love this salesperson. They're great. They're super fun with everybody else, whatever. Like, there's nothing wrong with them as a person. We really love having a part of the company, but they're just like, they seem to not be hitting that typical 90-day maybe onboarding, and they're just lagging a little behind. I need to give them a bump. And then to be able to go to like a ChatGPT and say, hey, can you help me devise a plan based on their persona or their personality traits that would work best for them? That's massive. And so when we've shown that to sales, team leaders, not just the people on the ground, boots on the ground, they're just like, whoa, So again, just selling that solution of not only is this going to help your team, it's going to help you as a manager, and it's going to help speed up those onboarding or just retraining, parts of the job.
So if we're going to jump into mastering the art of pitching AI services, I think we need to start with the elephant in the room is the pushback, ironically enough, that you might be getting from people in the organizations. And so how does everybody on this call, get past that level? Because you're going to have the naysayers or the ones that are, this guy's falling with AI possibly, but I guess it's easy to jump to the value proposition, all the stuff you just said, Brian, and 10xing this task or role or making you a better manager. But if they're only ready to listen, if their wall is already up, what's the nugget that you feel like is going to get past that and get them to try something or whatever?
What are the objections you've heard when you've been pitching?
Well, it's odd. It's almost like they don't understand, so they kind of bristle with like angst, like, no, I don't know. What do you mean this is going to do? What do you mean? Like they because they're so unsure of the technology, and maybe I'm talking too over their head, but I get the sense that they get a little bit angry. Is that the right word? Because when you don't understand something, you get a little uncomfortable. Like you're no longer the authority in your space, and somebody's coming into the space like, hey, I can do this better for you. I'm not sure if it's so much objection is just like an attitude, honestly.
So Carl was going to say something, but just in like response to what you're talking about, I think we're going to have that situation. So I think we need to have like a game plan, which may just be like, I totally understand where you are. And so I'm just going to leave this postcard because at some point you're going to want to ask a question about what's happening with AI. And I'd love to have that conversation with you then.
That's brilliant.
Right. So you're getting in and you're like, cool. Right. Like,
pretty soon you're going to have questions about this. I'd like to be there for you when you do. Yeah. That's a really good approach. You don't have to come at them with like, I can fix this. You just like, look, you're going to have questions, and I want to be the person that you think of first when that happens. That's a good way of thinking about it.
Whenever we do discovery presentations with potential clients, the thing that we lead with was the presentation is more of an education rather than we're pitching our products. The pitch the products is like one slide at the end, because we feel pretty comfortable by the end of the presentation. We've done enough that, I think I've said this before, that we've given enough examples that the people across the table are now thinking of how to apply it to their company. So it's never about we want you to get our service. It's about, it's the education piece. So we lead with, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what's happening in AI. These are some examples. These are some examples potentially in your space. And this is where this is going. So that's the breadth of our presentation, where we leave about 25 minutes for them after that to start having questions and start thinking about things. And every single time, we haven't had one where they just sit there and say nothing. It's more of like they get involved and like they come up with examples. So I think the takeaway here is like, when you're pitching something, I wouldn't pitch a service. I'd pitch, hey, this is we just want to, there's a lot of things happening in AI. We just wanted to give you like an example, some examples. We wanted a quick education to see where you are, and then just have a conversation.
Is that what your presentation does? Is it capabilities? Is it use cases? Is it examples? What is it that you get the triggers their interest?
So I do like 5 or 6 very high level examples. The examples, usually I lead with GPT boss. More so it's sort of an icebreaker for me, because then I can show on GPT boss all the people that this will replace, and that usually triggers some sort of joke from the other side saying, we're going to place this person, and they all laugh about it. That's intentional to get that. So I always lead with GPT boss. Then I do a financial one. There's a financial video that it's kind of old, but it gets the job done. Then whether it's a chat bot specifically for them, an automation, like a basic automation,
Sorry, go back to financial. So financial, are you saying like an argument that you're going to save money? Or
there's an actual video that I've kept, and this person created this way back in February, maybe January.
Way back then?
Yeah,
like a decade ago in February.
Remember my niche here. My niche is non-technical, like very traditional. Anyway, so I'll share the link to the video once I find it again. It's just someone who's created some sort of application in Excel where this person has fed it, has like taken a financial report, an annual financial report, and just copied and pasted, put it into Excel, and it's like GPT sheets. Review this and if there's any risks involved, and then it does it, and then it pops it out, and then everyone's amazed with it. And because of how that video is done, it's like it triggers. Remember that outside of our echo chamber, a lot of people like still think ChatGPT at the basic level, but if you show them something outside of that where it's an actual tangible use, and every single person can tangibly use this, it always triggers a finance person if there's one in the room. Always triggers them. They're like, I watch that person while they're watching, and I could see the eyes just go, and I'd be like, got it.
So are you talking about like a Google sheet that ties to an API that does like a little formula on the cell next to it, and kind of you can just drag and drop the cell down and
kind of. You know what? Here, do you?
It's basically what I'm imagining is this is like macros that I was in 1, 2, 3 back in 1985.
No.
That was automation then, but it was quite sophisticated automation.
No. No, it's here. I will share it in the chat with everyone. I don't know if we can play it because the clip is very short. And it's I think, where is it? Oh, it's at 4:16. It's 4:16 to 5:20, maybe a little bit over, and that's it. That's all I need. That is all I need. That 1 minute
Thanks for that.
Given me so much. So it's that.
Am I right, Carl, in understanding that what you're showing in that video is an automation to give them the idea that there's something that could be done?
Not even an automation. Nothing in automation. It's like take financial data, put in, it's ChatGPT in Excel, analyze this, and that's it.
Okay.
And that always gets people like, but remember, it's the most basic example, but not everybody does it. And that's more than enough. And just the way that it's presented, analyze financial data, and the way they put it in the app, every single CFO, accounting person can relate. If I did this on ChatGPT, wouldn't relate. This relates so much. It's such a good example for me.
Yeah, so it seems like it's a tool or an extension inside of Excel or something
like that.
Well, but you can do this. You can do this with Code Interpreter.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody can do this, but not if I the moment I would say Code Interpreter, advanced data analysis.
Yeah,
I can see the glaze. Like, what the heck are you talking?
Yeah.
That's the YouTube. That's the title of the YouTube video.
That's the title of it, because I thought it'd be too crazy to try to put the URL link in there and people would be trying to like copy it. But that's what you could search up to get to what Carl was just talking about. I want to bring up that point, Carl, what you were just saying about like we talk about this a lot. You got to meet the client where they are. So for an example, if I was going to be pitching AI services into marketing, there's almost no reason for me to say the words Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, Leonardo. These mean nothing and they won't mean anything to the client. What would mean a lot to a client is showing them an example of how quickly I could go from an idea to an image to 4 different types of social media posts that could all be saved with the team through Canva, right? So like now I'm like, look how fast this can go from ideation to reality and be pushed out with your team. That's going to talk to them. Or my wife, who has the unfortunate experience of having to be in the house with me as I talk about AI all the time. To be fair, she talks about nutrition all the time, and it does the same thing to me. So, 17 years of marriage. So when I talk to her, obviously I could be like ChatGPT, Claude, Pi, whatever the case is. But you know what like makes a difference to her? Well, like this is months ago when I was like, oh, hey, did you know that you could create lesson plans much faster? Because that's what she happened to be working on that day for all her interns. And I was like, oh, you could do that faster with ChatGPT. And she's like, can you? I was like, yeah, just give me what you're looking to do real quick. And I did it. I showed her, I solved the pain point for immediately. And it was at the time that she needed the solution, which goes back to what you guys were saying earlier about, or Beth, you were saying, which is like being ready to be there when they need you, when they're ready to need you. And one, I think, fantastic way to do that is by leveraging LinkedIn. We have done this to full extent with our business, but also a lot of the people that I've helped with LinkedIn strategy. And that's simply being the person that's going on to LinkedIn and being the subject matter expert in this area. So putting out content and not expecting it to turn into a deal tomorrow. It probably won't. But you know what? It lives in your feed forever and it's there. So then when people are ready to receive that, when they're in that open receiving mode of, oh, I have this need, I have this pain point. Oh, but you know what? Beth has been talking about these solutions forever. I keep seeing her posts. Who's the first person they're going to think to go talk to? It's going to be Beth. It's going to be you. They're going to be like, yeah, Beth's the person. I don't even need to know who the other solutions are. Beth has been helping me for free for a long time, and that means a lot to me. And now they become right to you.
You make a really good point, Brian. And even with that, I think it's also like I guess tying what you just said with Carl, if you do a presentation, if you're at a conference and you're speaking on a panel, this happened to be in January of last year, and you're going to say stuff that's way over their head, but there's one thing they're going to connect with, which is what Carl just said. They connected with that Excel thing. And then 6 months later, all they think of like, man, that Carl, he's brilliant. And then they're going to reach out to you. And that's exactly what happened. I got 2 clients from that directly that we're working with because of this January. And of course, as I'm posting on LinkedIn and everything else, I got 2 speaking engagements this month, next month for the franchise conferences that I'm a part of. And so that all came out of just one conference. And I think because they think when something resonates with them, the rest of 90% of the other stuff you said might be completely, over their head, but you got to make it basic enough. So mastering the art of pitching AI services is really about planting that seed. What's that earbug? What they call it? From Star Trek, Wrath of Khan.
The
Oh.
whatever it is. Yeah.
Somebody just digs in there and it kind
I'm
of
doing
buries itself.
Babelfish.
Yeah. So
Well,
that
I want to take a second to highlight all of these things that everyone's been talking about so far. These are all these are pitching, just generally, just tried and true pitching techniques, right? So for our audience who are looking to go into providing AI services, or they're transitioning from one product to another or anything like that, everything we've talked about so far are those same techniques, right? Beth says, make that impression, leave that note, that postcard, so that you're available. We've seen these techniques before. Carl's talking about some basic psychology. Make it their idea, right? It's providing information, providing education, and then it clicks. And once it clicks in their minds, it's their idea to pursue it and move forward. All right. And that kind of speaks to what Brian and Robert were saying, is that you're seeding that information, and when like Brian says, when they're ready, they'll come to you. But these are, I just wanted to highlight for our audience, these are tried and true pitching methods. We're just explaining what might work better or work, just be a little different for AI specific. And that.
So how do we pivot that, which is a great TLDR, Jimmy? How do we pivot that to AI services? So now we plant the seed. Now, what's the best way to say, okay, hire me to do?
Yeah, and what's the work product? What's the work product that is part of the pitch ultimately?
So when we're part of our end, when we're technically pitching a product, if everything has gone right, where the person has already thought of ideas, then to us, we have like a base product. I think you have to have a base product and then different tiers on that product, where a base product, you'd have something like, okay, we have analysis to analyze your department, a whole business, whatever that is. Then you do, which is whatever price you price it out. Then you're like, okay, we also have something like an automation, also have, if you're working with an AI development team, then we have like custom builds. Then we also have, education, which is a big one. It's like, did you want prompt education? Did you want general education? Then we also have the chatbot packages too. So it's like, I think for us, we made it was, when we first started, we didn't have that base product. We kind of just went with it. We started with like an analysis, but then when we actually put, here's the base product, here's what you're going to get, here's examples of ROI you get. And this one, we usually lead with efficiency. Like, this is all the things that your team can now get you to do. And then we can, usually that dovetails into revenue. Usually it does. But we lead with efficiency at the very basic, and I explained that too. It's the best use of AI right now is to help improve your team, your employees, improve their time so they don't have to do the mundane, they don't have to do repetitive tasks. That's how we lead with it, and it's
that's a big net. That's a shotgun. I mean, what you just said seems like, oh, use AI to increase speed and task. That's not exactly a one-trick pony. That's like everybody's got different tasks that different AI will serve.
For sure. It totally, except for that. That's in the context of if I was pitching to somebody who I just did cold, but like usually after our presentation gets to that, we've narrowed down the focus, and then it's through the conversation with the prospect that then you kind of understand which areas. And if you feel that it's too much or they're overwhelmed, always start with a pilot. Hey, let's pilot this section out. And that usually opens that door. So instead of trying to like, oh, the entire business, no. It's like, hey, I heard from Julie in accounting that she did this. And then it's like, okay, let's pilot it here. Why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? And they're like, yeah, let's do that. And so that usually gets
that
it.
post engagement though, or is that pre-sale?
Oh, that's during. That's
Yeah.
wherever you are in the conversation.
That's
I have a
an
question
investigation.
for each of Robert and Brian. So you each are involved in larger consultative enterprises, and I would like you to describe the transition between 2022 and the kind of engagements and the portion of engagements that were involved in automation and AI, and 2023, and what does that look like, and how are the engagements changing now with AI? Has it really penetrated? And give us some sense about what's happening in the world of consulting.
I mean, I'll tell you from the sales side of things, we don't do an analysis of a company anymore that does not also include AI. So we do deep analysis of the company. We may be looking at their playbooks. We may be looking at their outbound sequences. We may be looking at whether they need a fractional VP of sales. We can help them in those areas. But now when we go and we do that deep analysis, it is also because you have to do the work anyway. So you're uncovering their tech stacks, you're uncovering their pain points. And that goes back to what Carl was saying, is that in turn uncovers areas where we can go in and say, look, we think it would be a mistake to try to, like a couple of years ago when everybody wanted, machine learning was the big word, AI, but also machine learning, and everybody wanted predictive and prescriptive analytics. And we would have to say, you're okay, but you're not ready for predictive and prescriptive analytics. You're at the diagnostic stage. We can help you with that too, but it's a crawl, walk, run. So I think coming in and figuring out the little areas where you can make small improvements. And now with AI, obviously it's able to come in and say, hey, here's where we think we can make very fast changes. Like within a day, when it comes to sales people, we can deploy a new solution that they're not using, train them how to use ChatGPT. And by the end of the same day, they can be showing improvements in efficiencies using that technology. That's hard to beat. And so that's really where it's changed for us, is now talking about the speed to, new deals, new RI, that kind of stuff like that. So
Andy, what exactly are you asking? What are you looking for?
I'm wondering if there is identifiable new portion of your revenues for all of your consultants out there in the field that's coming from AI in a way that's different from 2022. Because there might have been some small portion that was related to machine learning, but now has it grown to 20%? And are most of the pitches that are going out from your network of franchise consultants at WSI, are they focused on AI?
So they can't. Okay. So obviously, as you know, we are in two camps. We have our owners that want to use AI to do a better job of their core business model, which is marketing, digital marketing, ad generation, branding. They want to use AI to make them better. That's one group. And there's another very small subset who's early adopting into the AI consultancy module that I'm leading up. And they're definitely doubling down and getting engagements with clients that are, speaking engagements and training and workshops. And, we're just now getting to the point now where we're starting to make them tools, kind of like what Carl does. So if you're asking, I think this time next year, 1 year from now, we'll hopefully move that one camp over to this camp. And so they'll be well integrated into we're calling it WSI 2.0 or an AI enabled agency. So they're going to be integrated more and be able to the new business model will not just be separate like that. So stay tuned and ask me that question in 6 months.
And just to follow up real quick on that, because I know we're wrapping up, and Andy, I would say 0 last year, like 0. Yeah. It wasn't even a part of our business model. I don't know about 20%. What I can tell you, as just from the LinkedIn experience and in establishing ourselves as subject matter expertise, especially our CEO, Jake Dunlap, who has a 70,000 plus followers. So it's obviously he has a huge reach that he's built up since like 2018. 2 of our current AI clients and 2 upcoming clients have come directly from the comment section of his posts. Like that's how big of a deal it is establishing yourself as a subject matter expert, as a thought leader in the area. So the big, I know we're going to jump into TLDR. Here's my TLDR. Don't be silent about it. Whether you're internally trying to prove an AI solution for your internal team, it's not even like you're trying to be a consultant. You're like trying to literally start something in-house, homegrown. Start working on a small solution that your team can get some value out of, whether that's just simply improving emails going out the door or organizing your Gmail into a Slack or whatever the case may be for that. There's some really small areas where you can make improvements. And often I find, and I know Rachel says the same thing, is like go solve solutions internally. And those oftentimes become the things that you can externally actually bring out as either sometimes they reveal themselves as new product offerings. And we've seen that inside Scaled. We've solved problems inside Scaled and then said, this is actually really, really good. It's working really, really well for us. We've refined it and then turned it outward. And then that has in turn become new services and stuff like that we can now pitch because we've already been using it internally now for months. And so now we have a lot of data that we can push. So I don't want to go too far.
So my TLDR,
that's my TLDR. So
I'm going to steal Carl's TLDR. Probably is be absolutely insatiable about looking for that aha moment in your client's eyes. That right there is going to be the biggest leapfrog from pitching them an AI service. Is look for the thing, make it basic enough that you don't go over their heads. Find out what your audience is needing and give them an aha moment.
So I'm going to follow up on that and say, if you are planting the seeds in fertile ground, right? Like I'm thinking about Carl's example of the Excel spreadsheet. Even if you don't see the eyes grow, you know that financial person is thinking about that every time they're doing whatever you just showed manually. Right? Yeah. Like every time that person opens Excel. So like look for the aha moments, but don't assume if you don't see them that they're not happening. And set the conversation when you're at a place where you want to have this conversation. I would love to have that conversation with you. I'm so excited about it.
I love that idea.
Mm-hmm. I'll do the last. I'll do one where even if you're not planning to do consulting, create an AI presentation for and then present it to a couple of people. It's not to sell a service, but it's more of one to practice a potential presentation, but also showcase your knowledge to like businesses. And don't say it's a presentation for, selling a service. It's like, hey, this is what's happening in the AI. I don't know if you've heard of it. I just want to do a quick presentation with a couple of people. And it's free. And most of the time people would say, yeah, for sure. Just find a time, do your presentation. And I'll bet you a good chunk of the time they will actually, hey, there's a lot of good things here. Like, that opens the door for you helping them out today or into the future. So just create a presentation and just go start doing it like to random businesses.
My TLDR is I think that the real value proposition today with what's available in AI is accelerating the goal execution of the individuals in your organization by assisting them with tasks. And I like the idea that Carl put forward about using GPT Boss, which has an array of different characters who represent the different positions in your company and can assist that particular position. So that can open your mind to where you can get those productivity gains that the Harvard Business School study suggested in your own organization.
Nice.
And I'll just say, like most things in life, it's all about the story, right? So don't forget the narrative, right? If you can tell the story in whatever perspective someone needs to hear it, that's going to stick with them, right? So it just approach everything. Everyone thinks in stories in their mind, whether it's little stories they say to themselves or they find themselves as the main character. I just say approach it that way. As long as you remember what your narrative is, it'll stick with them.
Yay!
Well done. All right.
Awesome. Well, that is episode 40, as a matter of fact. So we are climbing. I can't believe it. We've had 40, and then we had pre-episodes before that. So really probably over 45 for us, but 40 of them are published or will be published. So that wraps another week of the Daily AI Show. We will be back next week, as always, to talk about 5 new AI topics that hopefully you will love. And until then, I think I was really excited about this one, and it met all my expectations. So this was a cool episode for sure. Thanks for everybody's insight in it, and we will be back on Monday. See you guys.
Cheers.
Later.